People still remember him as a god of action cinema, the cowboy with the threatening squint, or the police officer whose gun was always ready to punish evil. For more than 6 decades, Clint Eastwood was not merely a star. He was the embodiment of toughness, a fortress of traditional masculinity that few could ever hope to shake. Yet time spares no one, and the final chapter in the life of a Hollywood icon is being written in a way no cinematic script could ever have predicted. At 96 years old, instead of dazzling spotlights or blockbuster film projects, Clint Eastwood's world has now narrowed into silence and stillness. The rare images of him appearing recently have left the world speechless. A man once considered larger than life has now become strangely simple, slow-moving, and vulnerable. No longer forcing himself into a role, the Eastwood of today is allowing audiences to witness the most authentic, most human version of himself. This transformation bears no resemblance to decline. On the contrary, it is a journey of abandoning glory in order to reach genuine peace. To understand why the image of an aging man can feel so profoundly moving, we must look back at how the Eastwood spirit was forged during the hardships of his early life. Clint Eastwood was not born into glamour. He was born in 1930, precisely when the Great Depression was suffocating America. His childhood consisted of endless moves, following his father, a factory worker and technician searching for jobs from one town to another. Amid poverty and the uncertainty of the times, Eastwood learned a brutal lesson very early in life. The world owes you nothing, and if you want to survive, you must carve out your own place with your bare hands. That harshness forged the distinctive demeanor that would later become his personal trademark. After serving in the military, the young Clint drifted through countless jobs: truck driver, swimming pool digger, even lifeguard. There was no red carpet leading him to Hollywood. It was an accident, a destiny written through quiet perseverance. He entered the world of cinema not as a loud man desperate to prove himself, but as a careful observer. While actors of his generation tried to express emotion through exaggerated performances, Eastwood moved in the exact opposite direction. He possessed an astonishing sense of stillness. Even the very first time he stood before a camera, he maintained that deadly calm. His silence was not emptiness, but a flat lake concealing violent waves beneath the surface. It was precisely that restraint that made audiences unable to look away from him. A magnetic presence that never needed to shout for attention. That presence was far more than a simple acting skill. It was the instinct of a man who had learned to control fear deep within his subconscious. People often described Clint Eastwood as a man of few words, but few realized that his silence was the result of years of hardship, where unnecessary words were often seen as signs of weakness. From that powerful silence, he was ready to embrace his destiny on distant lands, where an Italian director was about to transform him into a legend far beyond the borders of America. If early cinema only recognized Clint Eastwood as the man with no name, with a cigar between his lips and a faded poncho in Sergio Leone's Western films, that was merely the beginning of a legend. The world once believed he would remain trapped in rough action roles, playing lonely outlaws and hardened anti-heroes. But Eastwood, guided by the instincts of a survivor, proved that he was not simply an actor who knew how to fire a gun. He was an artist with extraordinary vision. His most important transformation did not come from guns, but from the director's chair. Quietly, he stepped behind the camera and learned how to tell stories through still frames and deeply reflective lighting. Eastwood never chased trends. He searched for the darker corners of the human soul. From Unforgiven, the film that dismantled every stereotype about the Western genre, to Million Dollar Baby, a heartbreaking elegy about sacrifice, he transformed small human stories into timeless masterpieces. Every one of his films feels like a fragment of contemplation. He never needed flashy visual effects or suffocatingly fast pacing. Eastwood's style was minimalism taken to its purest form. With only the slightest gesture or a perfectly timed silence, he could convey emotions that thousands of lines of dialogue could never fully express. Audiences did not simply watch his films, they absorbed them, the way time slowly sinks into stone. Eastwood's career stands as proof of a man who never allowed himself to stand still. He was a multi-talented artist, an emotional composer, a demanding producer, and a tireless director. With 4 Academy Awards and dozens of acclaimed works, he not only built a cinematic empire, but also reshaped an entire era of the entertainment industry. His legacy lies not merely in awards, but in the lesson he taught generations of filmmakers. The true power of cinema exists in what remains unspoken. But when the final scenes faded and the applause at film festivals slowly disappeared into the distance, Eastwood chose to retreat into an entirely different world. He left behind the chaos of film sets to return to the silence he had long desired, a place where scripts and directing instructions were no longer needed. The bright lights of red carpets and the pressure of media interviews have now faded away, replaced by the endless sound of waves crashing against the Californian shore. In the final chapter of his life, Clint Eastwood has chosen to leave behind the noise of Hollywood and return to tranquility within nature. He is no longer the powerful director standing in the middle of elaborate film productions, but simply an elderly man learning how to appreciate the peaceful fragments of an ordinary day. His life now unfolds quietly like a low note in the symphony of existence. No social media, no high-profile interviews. What remains is absolute freedom. Eastwood's days now revolve around simple pleasures. Reading books beneath the afternoon sunlight, watching his favorite television programs, and spending long stretches of time enjoying peaceful afternoon naps. Each evening, as the sun slowly sinks into the Pacific Ocean, he often stands silently gazing at the sea, an image that reflects the long and turbulent road he has traveled throughout his life. Especially inside his private home, there is a small corner that holds the deepest part of his soul, the piano. It is not a place meant for dazzling performances, nor for receiving applause from the public. Eastwood sits at the keyboard, letting his fingers drift through the stillness of the room. The music rises only for himself, like a quiet confession, a conversation with the past and with memories slowly fading into nothingness. It is the monologue of an artist who has laid down every trace of fame. This silence is the gift he has chosen to give himself after a lifetime spent carrying the weight of glory beneath the spotlight. He is no longer a symbol of toughness, but a soul searching for lightness and peace. Yet even within that calm, pain remains an uninvited guest, because no matter how peaceful life may become, it can never escape loss and separation. Eastwood's life, no matter how glorious, was ultimately forced to confront the cruel reality of farewell. In July 2024, his world fractured when his longtime partner, Christina Sandera, left this world. Her passing not only left an emptiness inside the seaside home, but also completely changed the quiet atmosphere that had long surrounded his life. In the moment of facing loss, Eastwood did not turn to the media to express his grief. Instead, he confronted the pain in the very manner he had built throughout his entire life, brief, private, and restrained to the point of heartbreak. "I will miss her very much." Only a single sentence, yet within it rested an entire ocean of sorrow too deep to name. The way he handled loss reflected the philosophy of a survivor embedded deep within his bones. His son, Scott Eastwood, once spoke about the iron discipline within their family. Never complain, never allow pain to paralyze your will, and above all, always keep moving forward. It was not emotional coldness, but a defense mechanism forged through decades. Eastwood understood that life is like a river. Even when enormous rocks block its path, the water must still find a way to flow through or around them in order to continue its journey. That philosophy became the anchor that kept him standing through emotional storms. He keeps his pain to himself, turning it into another layer of the silence that has long defined him. Eastwood does not seek comfort from the outside world. He finds strength within self-discipline, a resilience that requires no shouting, only the quiet endurance necessary to survive life's darkest days. Within that lingering sorrow, we now see a very different Clint Eastwood. No longer the invincible man, but a human being learning to confront brutal reality with the dignity of someone who has experienced every rise and fall life could offer. Yet no matter how harsh life becomes, his image remains an irreplaceable symbol in the hearts of audiences. People who grew up following every step he took across the silver screen. When fans look at Clint Eastwood today, they do not merely see a legend growing old. They see time itself unfolding in slow motion. The narrowed eyes, once a weapon capable of terrifying an entire town, have now become softer and more compassionate. The deep voice that once carried menace now speaks with a slow, gentle rhythm. Every step he takes, though no longer carrying the swagger of a gunslinger, still bears the weight of unwavering integrity. To audiences, Eastwood has become a symbol of values slowly disappearing from the modern world. In a noisy age where people constantly rush to display their egos, he represents the beauty of powerful silence. He is living proof that a man does not need to speak endlessly to be heard, nor seek attention in order to prove his worth. For Eastwood, dignity is like solid stone, needing no decoration, standing firm amid the chaos of changing times. Beyond the glory of stardom, he is also a family man with 8 children, a human legacy greater than even his legendary films. Those children carry within them part of his identity, a quiet continuation of the Eastwood spirit. Fans look at him and see reflections of themselves, aging, loss, and the desire to live truthfully until the very end. He is no longer merely a hero on screen. He has become an inseparable memory within the lives of countless viewers. His presence, even from afar on the shores of the Pacific, still brings a strange sense of reassurance. Proof that no matter how cruel time may be, some core values remain unshaken through every change. Through that invisible connection, we gradually realize the final lesson he is silently offering the world. We often become acquainted with legends through magnificent films, where they stand firm against storms, remain immortal against time, and always emerge victorious in life's most breathless moments. Cinema taught us how to admire strength, but rarely prepared us to witness those same icons grow old. Now, Clint Eastwood is teaching audiences the most important lesson of all: how to face the sunset of one's own life with grace and peace. Seeing him sit quietly by the window watching the waves, or alone at the piano in a house emptied of the woman he loved, does not destroy the hero we once imagined. On the contrary, it makes him more human than ever before. The peaceful conclusion to a life filled with glory is not surrender, but acceptance embraced with dignity. He is showing us that after standing strong against time itself, the final step of a legend is to let go of everything external and return to oneself. Clint Eastwood has lived a complete life, not merely through the roles he played, but through the way he has chosen to grow old. He does not cling to fame, nor try to make himself young again. Instead, he walks slowly forward, accepting loss and the marks of age as companions on the journey. Perhaps his greatest legacy does not lie in the Oscars displayed upon his shelves, but in the peace he radiates during these final years. A lesson in letting go, yet also the most complete way to say farewell to life. If Clint Eastwood's journey has moved you, do not forget to like and subscribe to follow more inspiring documentary stories about cinematic legends. Thank you for joining us in reflecting upon the legacy of a true icon.